Francisco, because our home office is for the Northern California affiliate is here in San Francisco. And often we have to try to focus our energy sort of to further flung parts of the Central Valley and whatnot, because we think we have it so good in San Francisco relative to other parts of the state or the Inner Bay Area. But in fact, Alameda County, in our own backyard, is poised to be, or trying vigorously to be, the first jurisdiction in California to get a drone for domestic usage. We're definitely witnessing something along the lines of drone fever domestically for law enforcement purposes. Congress passed a statute called the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration Modernization and Reform Act in 2012, which requires the FAA to come up with a plan to integrate drones into domestic airspace by 2015. So as of right now, the FAA is the little Dutch boy with the finger in the dike on drones. But the FAA primarily sees its mandate as safety and has been somewhat loath to get into the business of regulating drones on the grounds of privacy. So the FAA is not going to be the bulwark to protect our privacy rights, but so far as a practical matter, it has been the sort of logistical roadblock to drones being deployed on a more widespread basis than they have to date. The drone industry claims it can bring, it just released a study claiming that it will bring $13.6 billion. Can you speak up a little, please? Sure. The drone industry, there was just a study released that suggests that the drone industry could bring $13.6 billion with a B dollars to the economy between 2015 and 2017. So there is a very large private industry, very aggressively lobbying decision makers with their wares, and a lot of local law enforcement officials are very intrigued. So why should we be worried about drones? The technology is rapidly evolving. The possibility for comprehensive collection of vast amounts of data about us are just mind-boggling. Drones can be large predator drones, or they can be tiny hovering platforms the size of a hummingbird that come by your window and peer inside. They can be equipped with high-powered night vision cameras. Something called see-through imaging could peer through walls. Through distributed video, you could deploy a swarm of drones and collect a huge amount of information from multiple cameras. And then the use of video analytics and all kinds of new technologies, artificial intelligence technologies that the drone industry claims can predict behavior, anticipate bad actors before they even know they're about to commit a crime, all sorts of Minority Report type things. So the technology is evolving very, very rapidly and far more quickly than the legal frameworks that we have to regulate them. Why should we be concerned about drones, and how do they differ from other forms of aerial surveillance that have been around for a long time, like helicopters and airplanes? Well, there are two, apart from the fact that the technology is also rapidly advancing in terms of what information can be captured, there are two main differences between drones and other forms of aerial surveillance, like helicopters and airplanes, and they're cost and surreptitiousness. Why does the fact that drones are cheaper make a difference? In fact, law enforcement touts the relative inexpensiveness of drones as the very reason to get them. We can save more lives for less money. When traditional forms of aerial surveillance are extremely costly to operate, to purchase, to maintain, there is a natural resource barrier to the comprehensive collection of information through the use of airplanes and helicopters. It's just too expensive, so law enforcement's not going to do it unless they have a very, very good reason. But when drones and other forms of surveillance technology, cell phone tracking, what have you, GPS, automatic license plate readers, when these forms of technology radically reduce the cost of collecting information, the natural deterrent to abuse, resources, actually is removed, and therefore we need a much stronger safeguard to protect our privacy, because someone who is just curious might just send out, with a few switches of the, a few flicks of the computer switch can all of a sudden collect sort of information that could only have been collected before with very expensive and costly foot patrols doing 24/7 surveillance. So the danger of surveillance based on mere idle curiosity is suddenly very, very acute. The other major difference is surreptitiousness. Drones are intended to operate surreptitiously. So if I'm sitting in the privacy of my backyard, sunbathing nude on a sunny day behind my high fences, and I think I'm doing this completely in the privacy of my own home, if a helicopter comes flying overhead, say, I live in Berkeley, OPD is chasing a suspect and does some crazy things following in hot pursuit into Berkeley, I know when I see the helicopter flying overhead to grab my robe to protect my privacy. But if a drone is flying overhead and I have no idea it's there, I don't know that I need to take steps to protect images of my naked body from being captured by that drone and used for unknown purposes. So cost and surreptitiousness are the two main differences why drones do actually present a qualitatively different form of intrusion from other forms of aerial surveillance that we're more familiar with. So how are these decisions, and we were talking a little bit about drone fever, how are these decisions about whether to acquire a drone getting made? Very problematically, if you ask me. The existence of federal and state grant monies, Homeland Security grant monies, Urban Areas Security Initiative grant monies, post 9/11 we've seen this huge proliferation of these grant programs that have really encouraged local law enforcement to militarize and equip and buy all sorts of new fancy gadgets. This has resulted in at least two serious problems. One is that the decisions to buy a drone are being, in many cases, made unilaterally by law enforcement. Normally, in sort of separation of powers structure of most of our governments, we have a legislative body, democratically elected civilian leaders who represent a wide range of interests to hold the purse strings. The budget is the important part of that process where this public policy is made through funding choices, and you have a very open, transparent process, well, ideally, an open, transparent process, and the civilian elected leaders are involved in making very important public policy decisions, prioritizing where the money should go, where it should not go. When you have these federal grant programs, in many instances, and it sort of varies depending on the structure of the government, of the particular agency, but in a lot of instances, you're having these law enforcement officials, they don't need to apply for the money through the budget process, because there's this Homeland Security grant, there's this grant from CalEMA, California Emergency Management Agency, which is just out there. It's use it or lose it. Hey, let's get the newest fangled gadget. So sometimes these decisions are circumventing the normal budgetary process. The other major problem is that if you fund it, they will buy it. I mean, like, it's funny when I've, sorry to get a little bit too gendered about this, but when I've been talking about the work I've been doing on drones, amongst my progressive friends, the overwhelmingly male reaction is, but I want a drone too. There's a little bit of element of boys with toys. It's a really fun, cool thing. I mean, who wouldn't want this kind of thing that you could make fly up and make it do all these crazy things? Part of the problem with this sort of off-books funding that's circumventing the natural budgetary process, I'm sorry for that completely politically incorrect joke, is that you're not having decisions driven based on sort of as a public policy matter, let's do a cost-benefit analysis. Is this a budget priority? We have limited resources. How should we spend this? Is this something we need? Instead, what's happening is there's money out there. How can we spend it? Let's get this fun new gadget. Certainly, from the ACLU's perspective, these decisions need to be made in an open, transparent way by democratically elected civilian leaders, not simply law enforcement. But there's also, a very traditional sort of Republican argument that, like, we need to be fiscally conservative about this. Is this a wise use of resources? Let's be doing a cost-benefit analysis here. The naked scanners, right? These naked scanners were introduced in the airports in 2009, 2010 using this new backscatter technology, and it was supposed to detect liquids close to your body. This could help detect the underwear pants bomber. Well, in fact, GAO had done a study at the time saying, you know what, there are sort of flaws with this technology. The vendors are overstating. The vendors who are hugely invested in selling their wares are overstating what it can do. It might not actually detect the kind of bomb that the underwear pants bomber would have used. obviously there were enormous health and safety concerns, and there were outrageously huge privacy concerns because we were having naked images of grandma go up on the screen. So TSA, though, just rushed headlong into implementing these naked scanners, despite the privacy objections, health and safety objections, and efficacy concerns. And then fast forward to January of this year, TSA announced that it's going to pull all 174 remaining naked scanners in the airports because the vendors could not actually deliver on mandated privacy promises. $45 million wasted. So this is the kind of situation where when we're acquiring new surveillance technology, whether it's drones, naked scanners, ALPRs, whatever, we should be really asking basic questions like, what are the benefits of this technology, and are those benefits actually going to outweigh the harms, the costs, the financial costs, and the privacy costs? When we have these sort of off-books, effectively budgeting decisions that are just driven by, oh, let's quickly spend this money that we have, we're not asking these questions. We're not engaging in these really important balancing questions. We're wasting taxpayer dollars, and we're invading a lot of privacy in the process.